It's Thursday, November 4th, and this is now on HNN. An investigation is underway after another surfboard rack is set on fire in Waikiki.
New federal vaccine mandates set a deadline for millions of unvaccinated working Americans. I'm Skyler Henry at the White House as several states are already planning to push back in court.
After a surge in bad behavior in the skies, a look at how many cases of unruly passengers the FAA has sent over to the FBI. Plus details on NASA's mission to test a defense system that could protect Earth from an incoming asteroid. These stories and more coming up on This Is Now.
Aloha and welcome everyone to This Is Now. Casey Lund and Ashley Nagaoka coming to you from the HNN Digital Center. We do have a high number of deaths reported by the State Department of Health today. We're going to get to that and the pandemic news in just a moment. But again this morning, another surfboard rack, Ash, in Waikiki caught fire. And yeah, again, short time since the last time this happened.
Yeah, it happened just weeks after that massive blaze destroyed the racks near the Moana Surf Rider. It's unclear at this time if the two fires are related. Billy V has the latest from the scene.
Thank you very much. We're here on Kalakaua Avenue. According to the Honolulu Fire Department, here's the latest that we have right now. The time of a magazine rack fire was at 3:52 this morning. It happened about 3 blocks Waianae side of where we are. So at this place, and you're taking a look at some of the footage right now, the magazine rack was reported. At the same time they were trying to put out that fire, Honolulu Police Department officers reported that the surfboard stored in the alleyway, popularly known as Duke's Lane. Let's bring you back here and take you down the alleyway. This is in between the Outrigger Waikiki Beach Resort and next to the Cheesecake Factory and the Royal Hawaiian Shopping Center.
It's pretty crazy how all these boards are catching on fire, man. Somebody's jealous of the surfers or something. Yeah, some pyromaniac maybe, I don't know. So it's a loss. It's a bummer because the stand-up boards are a lot of money, man. Over 1,000 at least, yeah.
Now, these two fires, we can't, according to Honolulu Fire Department, they say that they can't report that the two fires are related, but they are investigating. So at this time, fire investigators are doing their due diligence. Police investigators are standing by. Still no word yet if this is indeed an arson investigation. We're waiting for word on that. In the meantime, the investigation continues. From Waikiki, we'll send it back to you.
Now to the latest coronavirus numbers. The state health department is reporting 13 more COVID-related fatalities today. That puts the state's death toll at 932. DOH is also reporting 112 new infections. The breakdown by island shows 57 cases on Oahu, 28 on the Big Island, 18 on Maui, and 7 on Kauai. 2 residents were diagnosed out of state. More than 80 million Americans will have to comply with a vaccine or testing mandate. The White House announced today anyone working for a company with more than 100 employees will need to be fully immunized by January 4th or undergo weekly testing. Skyler Henry has the latest.
On the second full day that kids can get COVID vaccine shots, top public health officials were grilled about the ongoing response to the pandemic.
Vaccination, as we have seen, decreases your risk of infection by 6-fold, decreases your risk of hospitalization and death by 10-fold.
Republican lawmakers repeatedly pressed the witnesses about vaccine mandates versus natural immunity.
Are you so convinced that the data is so compelling that natural immunity isn't as good as vaccination?
If we don't know that natural immunity confers protection against future infection, it's because we've decided not to look.
The nation's top infectious disease expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, again clashed with Republican Senator Rand Paul over whether the virus leaked from a lab in China.
You won't admit that it's dangerous, and for that lack of judgment, I think it's time that you resign.
He is egregiously incorrect in what he says.
The contentious hearing came on the same day the White House unveiled new rules, which will require millions of unvaccinated working Americans to get the shot. All federal employees, federal contractors, and healthcare workers at facilities receiving Medicare or Medicaid have until January 4th to be fully vaccinated. People who work at businesses with more than 100 employees must also be vaccinated by January 4th or test weekly and wear a mask at work.
Vaccine requirements are working.
It's a hard sale to tell people who have had COVID that they're now under a mandate.
More than 24 states have already announced plans for lawsuits to block the mandates from taking effect. Skylar Henry, CBS News, the White House.
Here at home, Hawaii's keiki ages 5 to 11 are beginning to get vaccinated. About 100 kids lined up to get their low-dose Pfizer shots at Kapiolani Medical Center. The shot comes with a smaller needle, but experts say parents should be honest with their children, tell them it may hurt a little, but ultimately will help everyone get back to normal.
We feel a real special responsibility to get this right. So we've modified our vaccine stations a little bit, created a bit more privacy so kids don't make each other anxious.
Hawaii Pacific Health started providing the vaccines yesterday. The Queen's health system starts on Friday. Many schools will begin on Monday. With COVID hospitalizations down to 71 patients statewide, more traveling nurses are scheduled to fly home soon. But we're told hospitals are in talks with about 100 of them to extend their stay in Hawaii or become permanent employees.
Some nurses have already converted from the FEMA-funded contract to the local hospital contract.
We have seen the stress and strain that our nursing staff has been under in the last 2 years here. We did see, more nurses retire, more nurses leave the clinical areas. So we are hiring across the board.
Despite the new hiring spree, the shortage continues. Experts say Hawaii needs at least 200 more permanent nurses.
When it comes to reopening Hawaii, Governor Ige has maintained that the state will follow the science, but critics say the rules for indoor dining don't make sense. Rick Desog has the story.
They must comply.
Governor David Ige justified his decision to continue the social distancing restrictions for indoor dining, saying he's following CDC guidelines and the virus is still spreading in restaurants.
We are concerned because we continue to get positive cases and clusters in restaurants and eating establishments.
But a check of the state's own data on coronavirus clusters shows that the cases at Oahu restaurants are declining. Since the Safe Access program got underway in mid-September, there have only been 4 clusters with 24 infections.
The Safe Access program is working.
Lieutenant Governor Josh Green says now that restaurant customers and employees are either vaccinated or have a recent negative test, it's now time to drop the social distancing requirement.
I would say that we do not need to continue to try to have 6 feet separation. All these individuals are vaccinated.
UH economics professor Carl Bonham said federal data shows that Hawaii restaurants have lost about 2,000 jobs in recent months. He says the economic harm of the restrictions now outweigh the health risks.
It strikes me with the falling case counts, the falling hospital utilization, and the very widespread vaccination. The question is, why wouldn't you relax the rules further?
Bonham questioned why restaurant tables still have to be 6 feet apart, while students in schools who are not required to be vaccinated can sit within 3 feet of each other. The state health department says schools and restaurants are different. Quote, schools are a controlled environment where students are required to wear masks indoors. Masks are taken off in restaurants. But the health department didn't explain why the restrictions are necessary when the data shows that restaurant clusters and infections are down. Rick Desog, Hawaii News Now.
The gridlock over President Biden's massive domestic policy legislation could be coming to an end soon, with the House preparing to debate and vote on that, as well as the $1 trillion infrastructure bill. Natalie Brand has more.
Multiple House Democrats have signaled their caucus could be ready to move on the nearly $2 trillion social spending and climate bill in the next 24 hours.
I hope that we're prepared today or tomorrow morning to vote on this bill.
But at her morning news conference, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi was less forthcoming on timing, though she repeated the plan to vote on the bipartisan physical infrastructure bill after the Build Back Better Act.
We're going to pass both bills. But in order to do so, we have to have votes for both bills, and that's where we are.
In the latest negotiations, House Democrats say they want to raise the cap on the state and local tax deductions known as SALT, and they remain committed to adding 4 weeks of paid family and medical leave to the measure.
There will be money in the pockets of the American people.
But key Senate moderate Joe Manchin remains firm on his opposition of putting paid family and medical leave in the final bill. Senator Manchin spoke to CNN Thursday morning.
I don't think it belongs in the bill. We can do that in a bipartisan way. We can make sure it's lasting.
Right now, the Democratic Party is shoving a massive expansion of government down the throat of the Republican Party.
Congressional Republicans have bashed the Build Back Better bill as a, quote, liberal spending spree, while Democrats are touting new analysis from the Joint Committee on Taxation, suggesting the provisions in the bill will help pay for it. Natalie Brandt, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
The Hawaii Department of Labor and Industrial Relations closed to the public for over a year and a half. Now they say they'll reopen to in-person visits part-time starting on December 1st. The plan is to open the doors Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Countless complaining residents have said the lack of office hours has prevented them from resolving benefits issues.
A fired Maui police officer is sentenced to 2.5 years in federal prison for offering to sabotage a woman's drunk driving case in exchange for sex. Our chief investigative reporter Lynn Kawano's stories helped launch that investigation years ago, and she was there as the ex-cop learned his punishment.
The federal judge said Brandon Safios abused his power as a police officer, took advantage of a vulnerable victim, and then sentenced him to 30 months in prison, the high end of the federal guidelines.
Ex-MPD officer Brandon Safios walked out the federal courthouse Wednesday, minutes after learning his fate. He will spend 2.5 years in prison for soliciting sex from a Kahului woman he arrested in 2019.
Am I still scared? Very. Do I worry about retaliation still? Yes. But I do feel like that I've gotten a little bit of my power back. I feel like I can breathe again.
The victim, who did not want her face shown, gave emotional testimony at the sentencing hearing, saying she felt threatened by Safios. He was one of the patrol officers involved in her DUI arrest in July 2019. Just hours after her release, she started getting text messages from him inviting her to his house. In exchange, he offered to throw his testimony in her case. After we aired the woman's story in 2019, other women came forward.
These women were really emotionally in terrible shape. They looked in the rearview mirror, they saw a police car. Is this cop a friend of this guy? I mean, what's going to happen to me again? Can I call 911 and expect to be helped?
Attorney Michael Green now represents 4 of them in a civil lawsuit against the Maui Police Department.
Encourage everyone else out there that is going through things like this to stand for, take a stance. Be brave, be brave, you're not alone.
Safios pleaded guilty to charges of honest services wire fraud. He apologized to the court and the victim directly.
Safios will self-surrender at Sheridan Federal Prison on January 7th. I'm Lynn Kawano, Hawaii News Now.
There are new allegations from attorneys for the person in charge of the guns on the film set of Rust. They claim someone may have purposely tampered with the ammunition by putting a live bullet in with a box of dummy rounds. Rust armorer Hannah Gutierrez-Reed says she has no idea where that live round came from. Alec Baldwin fired the gun that killed the film's cinematographer on the set of that movie last month. No charges have been filed. Meanwhile, Hollywood star Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is announcing a change on his movie sets. He says his production company will never use real guns again for TV shows and movies, and says he will enforce his no-gun rule with any studio he's working with.
We are going to be using rubber guns, and we'll take care of it in post. And we won't worry about the dollars, we won't worry about math or what the cost is. I think we're going to do it the right way.
We wanted to know what the safety protocols are on movie sets and TVs across our state. One man with 40 years of TV and film production experience in Hawaii says the process just to bring a gun into our state is rigorous.
Any armorer or property master that brings in weapons to Hawaii first has to have a federal firearms license. And the rental houses in Los Angeles won't ship out a weapon unless you have a federal firearms license. And once you get the weapons, then you need to register them with the HPD or the police department on each respective island. In 1993, when Brandon Lee was shot. The industry put out some very strict protocols. And as I mentioned earlier, if you follow those protocols, then a firearm on the set is very safe. And it's surprising that with all the protocols that are in place, that something like this could happen again.
Prop master Alvin Cabrina is referring to the tragic prop gun accident that killed Bruce Lee's son on the set of the film The Crow 28 years ago. The protocols for firearm safety are supposed to be the same on every set. The Maui Police Commission has finalized the appointment of John Pelletier as the new police chief. He'll be sworn in on December 15th. Pelletier spent the past 22 years with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. He replaces Tivoli Fa'amu, who retired in May.
We told you yesterday that Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers will not be playing this Sunday against the Kansas City Chiefs because of a COVID diagnosis. Now there are questions about his vaccination status and whether the league and his team gave him special treatment. Mola Lengi has more.
First down and goal. Rodgers keeps, floats, pass is caught by Cobb.
Green Bay Packers star Aaron Rodgers has his team rolling through the NFL this season, but this Sunday they'll have to play without him. The league's COVID-19 protocols kicked in after the 37-year-old quarterback reportedly tested positive for the virus, and team officials are not sharing any other details.
I'm not going to get into any of our coaches or players' vaccination status.
But according to league protocols, vaccinated players can return to the field after 2 negative COVID tests at least 24 hours apart. Unvaccinated players who test positive must remain in quarantine for 10 days, and Rodgers has already been ruled out for Sunday's game. He was asked about his status in August.
Are you vaccinated, and what's your stance on vaccinations?
Yeah, I've been immunized. You know, there's guys on the team that haven't been vaccinated. I think it's a personal decision. I'm not going to judge those guys.
What Rodgers meant by immunization is now under scrutiny. According to the NFL Network, Rodgers applied for vaccinated status with the league after receiving homeopathic treatment from his personal doctor to raise his antibody levels. NFL.com also reports the league denied his request because it did not provide any documented protection from the coronavirus. But throughout this season, Rodgers appears to have been given privileges afforded only to vaccinated players, like holding indoor press conferences without a mask. If Rodgers was getting a pass on COVID rules, there could be long-term consequences, says athletic reporter Kavitha Davidson.
We could be looking at a suspension potentially. That speaks a lot to special treatment for stars, which is just not what we can afford when we're still in the middle of a pandemic.
Now, we've reached out to Rodgers for comment and have not yet heard back. The NFL says it's up to individual teams to enforce league rules around COVID protocols and that it's currently reviewing the Packers' situation. Rodgers, we should note, is not the only player to test positive in the Packers locker room. 2 players missed a game last week, and the team's third-string quarterback joined Rodgers on the COVID list. Mola Lengi, CBS News, New York.
We're taking a live look outside at the Honolulu airport. A pretty beautiful Thursday afternoon. Let's check in with Guy Hagi and see what the rest of the work week has in store.
How's it on this Thursday? We've got some scattered showers this morning, mainly for the windward sides, but the leeward sides are still dry, and we are likely to see some passing showers through tomorrow, mainly for Kauai and Oahu, because there's a weak front kind of sitting over the west end of the state. Trade winds will be stepping up. They'll be a little stronger today than yesterday, except, of course, for the Kona side of the Big Island. And then on Friday, they'll get even stronger. So expect a nice day today, although semi-soggy for windward areas of Kauai and Oahu, where we're expecting a few scattered showers. Trade winds stepping up to 15 to 20, and the only weather alert is the small craft advisory for some coastal waters. Now, the bigger thing is the waves are dropping for the north and west shores, so that high surf advisory has been tossed out. Waves below advisory levels, but still to some extent dangerous up in the country. And because the swell is shifting in direction, east swells will be picking up a boost today, although east side is going to be a little bit choppy. So again, a few passing showers for Kauai and Oahu today and tomorrow. Still a fair bit of sunshine for leeward sides. And those trade winds running brisk and breezy from Friday all the way into Monday. Keep it here on Hawaii News Now. We'll have all your severe weather updates.
All right, let's see what the internet is talking about. Now, NASA will be testing its asteroid defense system later this month by deliberately crashing a spacecraft into a rocky orb. Now, the double asteroid Redirection Test, or DART, is the space agency's first planetary defense test mission. Now, the goal is to determine whether the impact of the spacecraft will change the asteroid's course. DART will launch on November 24th and target a double asteroid, Didymos, and its moon, Dimorphos. Now, NASA says neither poses a threat to Earth, but officials say this is just a test, so the agency is aware of its capabilities and technology if there is ever a threat to Earth. I'm glad they're being productive about that.
Yeah, it's a little crazy though to think
Yeah, a little
about.
Armageddon-ish.
Yeah, I don't want to mess with asteroids in space. Well, this next story is relatively interesting. News to me, Ash. Apparently, many adults are still getting help from their parents. According to a survey from finance website Magnify Money, nearly 30% of adults between 25 and 40, we're talking about millennials, still receive financial support from their parents for things like phone, bills, and rent. Across all age groups, 22% of adults say their parents are still helping them out. For shame. I kid because
I love you, Case, but I can't even look at you. I can't even look
it's called a family plan for a reason, okay? Get while the getting's good, my dad always said.
Well, researchers have discovered the potential meaning behind the adorable puppy head tilt. Now, a new Hungarian study suggests it may be the dog's way of processing relevant, meaningful stimuli. So that basically means your dog might be trying to focus, or it's recalling information from memory, like the name of its favorite human or its favorite toy. Now, this is the first study to examine the reason for head tilting in dogs. Super cute.
That's what I try to do when I remember things.
Yeah. Well, for those of you who don't know our Casey Lund here, he hails from Idaho, so he loves his potatoes.
Who doesn't? And so does a couple from New Zealand, a husband and wife, gardeners. They were out in their yard, just, weeding, doing that kind of thing, when they stumble upon what might be the world's largest potato. Ian Lee has this story. Let's check it out in Good News Now.
It was a simple day of weeding the garden when Colin's hoe struck something huge.
I got the fork and jabbed into it and hoiked it out of the ground, and holy snapping turtle teeth. What's going on here? Yeah. Like, what is it?
It was so big, it was beyond belief.
I said to Don, no, it's a potato. Yeah. And she went, no. I said, yeah, it is.
The portly potato tips the scale at 17.4 pounds. Something this large deserves a name. They settled on Doug because, they dug it up.
Doug, you're too special.
The New Zealand couple is now waiting to see if their super spud breaks the Guinness World Record, currently standing at a measly 10 pounds.
If we have it confirmed, there will be a celebration. Yeah.
Actually, I'm thinking, since I'm a bit of a hobbyist home brewer, I'm thinking about a special vodka.
But until then, the Titanic tater is living the easy life.
Poor fella, he doesn't have arms and legs and that sort of thing. So I made him a little trolley so we can take him out and give him a bit of sunshine now and then,
And of course, a bit of attention from their neighbors for their prized potato. Ian Lee, CBS News.
Wow.
That's a lot of potato vodka or fries or whatever. That thing is massive.
It is. Oh, man. Well, we'll see what happens to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for watching. This is Now, everyone. We'll have all your latest headlines